Did you know that the famous series Game of Thrones was not entirely invented? Behind the dragons and magic, there is a real basis, inspired by bloody events from the Middle Ages. Rival families, betrayals, incest, wars for the throne. All of this really happened. George R.R. Martin, the creator of the series, delved into medieval stories to build his world. And the most notable of these was the War of the Roses, a brutal conflict between two English houses, York and Lancaster. The name may be different, but does it ring a bell? Yes, Stark and Lannister. Get ready, because this story is darker than any fiction. The Wars of the Roses took place in England between 1455 and 1487. The two noble houses, York and Lancaster, fought for the throne of the country, which was experiencing a political and economic crisis. King Henry VI was weak and mentally unstable and left the kingdom vulnerable. This opened the way for internal disputes and betrayals. On one side, the Yorks wanted to regain their lost power. On the other, the Lancasters clung to the crown with tooth and nail. And so began a civil war that lasted more than 30 years. Thousands of people died due to ambition, vanity, and thirst for power. George R.R. Martin was directly inspired by these events. The Yorks became the Starks, with a more honorable and cold profile like the North. The Lancasters became the Lannisters, ambitious, rich, and cruel. Cersei Lannister, for example, is very reminiscent of Margaret of Anjou, wife of King Henry VI. She was intelligent, manipulative, and fought for her son's power. Even the famous Red Wedding in the series has a real basis. In 1440, two young men from House Douglas were murdered during a dinner with the Scottish king, a bloody betrayal that became known as the Black Dinner. The Stark family also has historical roots. They are reminiscent of the Nevilles, a powerful family from the north of England who were loyal, warlike, and constantly involved in battles. The Lannisters, on the other hand, were modeled after House Lancaster and the powerful barons of the south. The phrase, "a Lannister always pays his debts," also has medieval inspiration, when nobles displayed wealth and honor to maintain alliances. At many points, the series shows that true power lies not only in the sword, but in politics, marriages, and well-chosen words. And that was exactly how things worked in the Middle Ages. The alliances and betrayals shown in Game of Thrones reflect the political maneuvers of the time. Families married their children not for love, but for strategy. A good marriage could guarantee lands, soldiers, and power. Just as the Lannisters used Cersei to keep the crown, medieval nobles did the same. And when the alliance no longer worked, the partner became an enemy. Many marriages ended in poisoning or war. The Middle Ages were marked by a constant struggle between honor and survival. Peace, when there was any, was only a break between battles. Another character with a strong royal inspiration is Joffrey Baratheon, cruel, unstable, and arrogant. He is very reminiscent of King Edward of Lancaster, known as Edward of Westminster. This young prince was raised to hate the Yorks and died early in battle. His mother, Margaret, did everything she could to protect him, even if it cost thousands of lives. Like Cersei, she used every means to keep her son in power. The relationship between mother and son in Game of Thrones was a direct mirror of what was seen in the royal courts. Child kings guided by ruthless mothers.
And of course, we can't forget Daenerys Targaryen. Despite the dragons in fantasy, her story is inspired by royal exiles. Like the children of defeated kings, she grew up outside her homeland, dreaming of reclaiming the throne. This happened many times during the Middle Ages. Exiled princes would return years later with armies, alliances, and promises of justice. But just like in the series, these returns didn't always end well. Power changed people, and heroes didn't always remain heroes. Daenerys represents this transformation, from liberator to tyrant. Religious conflicts were also present in the series and in real history. The High Sparrow, for example, is reminiscent of the fanatical religious leaders who emerged at the end of the Middle Ages. They gained power among the people and threatened kings. In reality, the church was a force as powerful as the crown. Bishops influenced wars, crowned kings, and commanded armies. When faith combined with politics, the result was dangerous. Many kings ended up dead or excommunicated for defying the church, just like Tommen Baratheon, who was manipulated and destroyed by it. Another fascinating parallel is the wall that separates the north from the rest of the Seven Kingdoms. It is directly inspired by Hadrian's Wall, built by the Romans in the north of England. Its function was the same, to protect the empire against the barbarians of the north. In the series, the wildlings and the White Walkers represent the fear of the unknown. In real life, this fear also existed. The people of the north were seen as savages and dangerous. Stories about them were exaggerated, creating an aura of terror. Like the White Walkers, they became legends. Even the Night's Watch has royal roots. In the Middle Ages, there were military orders that protected borders and isolated castles. Knights, convicts, and landless men would band together to serve in remote locations. Many saw it as punishment. Others saw it as honor. Like Jon Snow, many of these warriors faced cold, hunger, and loneliness. And despite their importance, they were forgotten by kings. The Night's Watch was a perfect metaphor for these invisible soldiers of history. They existed, fought, and died far from the halls of nobility. The political game between the families is also based on what happened with the Borgias, Medici, and other powerful clans in Europe. Poison, blackmail, and manipulation were used as much as swords. Medieval families kept spies, bought votes, and corrupted judges. Like Littlefinger and Varys, they were true masters of intrigue. They did not wear armor, but they were as dangerous as any warrior. The phrase "power is where men believe it is," said in the series, sums up this reality well. In the Middle Ages, perception was power. For all its brutality, the Middle Ages also had beauty. Huge castles, nightly tournaments, grand banquets, and codes of honor. Game of Thrones captured it all faithfully. But remember, what looks epic on television was, in real life, dirty, violent, and uncertain. The Middle Ages were a time when life was a rare privilege, where anyone could become king or be hanged in the town square. George R.R. Martin brought this to the screen masterfully, reminding us that the past is more savage than we imagine. For all its brutality, the Middle Ages also had beauty. Huge castles, nightly tournaments, grand banquets, and codes of honor. Game of Thrones captured it all faithfully. But remember, what looks epic on television was, in real life, dirty, violent, and uncertain. The Middle Ages were a time when life was a rare privilege, where anyone could become king or be hanged in the town square. George R.R. Martin brought this to the screen masterfully, reminding us that the past is more savage than we imagine.